So it's been coming up more recently than it ever has. And I mean like that in this past month, but I think it's been leading up. But the one thing I want to talk about today was kind of, I guess, the idea of baggage that we bring specifically to new relationships or existing relationships from the past. And then we can kind of expand that more if we want to expand that topic. But kind of like, everyone we date, everyone we've ever been with has a right to have a past, has a right to have a history, and deserves to have their story. And so how do we navigate differentiating the story from reality? And how much of that do we pull towards the relationship? It feels to me like it's almost like this fog. It's a filter from stopping us from seeing the flesh and blood person in front of us that is our partner. Am I gonna?
I was actually thinking of like when you said we all have the right to our story, our history.
Yeah.
I started thinking of like from the partner's point of view of like, it's hard to be with this person because they're still stuck in their history.
Yeah.
They're not here engaged with me now in the now relationship. And yeah, I think there is some of that sometimes where like I'm not that person you dated 3 boyfriends ago or 3 girlfriends ago or whatever. Like I'm a whole new person. I understand that you've had some problematic and positive interactions and exchanges, but like I'm not them. So give me the chance,
Mm-hmm.
while also saying because of those experiences, that's the person who you are, who I want to be with, at the same time.
Yeah.
When relationships have this there's some meaning stuff about ourselves with relationships, right? And even back, if you look at like attachment stuff from infancy of like
right.
needing the mother figure to tell us that we're okay by interacting with us, just that also plays out later, right? In relationships.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, I'm in a relationship with this person, therefore I'm okay. There's something about me inside that has gotten approval, that is whatever that is. And so of course in an early relationship, there's just so much pressure. Like, it's like, am I okay? Who do I need to be, maybe for some folks, of like, who do I need to be to hold on to this person? How do I match their energy?
It's almost like this ghost or this fog that we're talking about that filters from my internal world of dealing with abandonment or expectations for what a good girlfriend or boyfriend should be, doesn't really understand time.
No, it feels like our experiences in the past, like if we got burned or if we had a positive thing, we can pull that up with our memory and remember it and think through it, but like the way it affects us now is more of just the emotion of it, the feeling of it, and like we're still running off of those cues, and not necessarily like thinking our way through that moment that happened back then. We have developed a belief about ourselves because of good and bad things that have happened to us, and we're still trying to have a current relationship with somebody.
Mm-hmm.
And they're also doing the same thing to us at the same time.
They're also doing the same thing to us. Yeah.
I think we forget that part all the time. All the time.
We do.
If we're in our defenses, we can't see the other person. All we're seeing is our own. We're like guarded, right? We're like feeling. So it's really hard to be self-confident enough or be okay enough inside where you say, I'm really open and here to listen, and this may or may not say anything about who I am as a person.
Yeah. And I might even go another step further than that and say that most often we are caught up in the ghost more than the real world. More than the real world, we're caught up in like this haze of expectations and caught up in the past. I wrote down this quote because I knew we were gonna maybe get around to talking about this. The poet Paul Eluard, has a quote that says, "There is another world, but it is this one." And I love that because I think that we're more caught up in our own heads than we are like living in reality, in the flesh and blood, like who is my partner right in front of me.
Yeah.
I mean, why is everything in, wellness all talking about trying to be aware and be mindful and be present? It's because we are in our dreams. We're in our
story.
In our story.
Yeah. In our own subjective experience, and we cannot not be in it, except for those rare times where we're in a present moment, like feeling it, like as with all of our defenses down, as raw as possible, not relying on previous patterns and to kind of dictate what we're going to do. And those are rare moments.
And I think it shows up in things other than just romantic relationships, right? I think it, especially for me, I find I'm growing my practice as a therapist, and so I feel like I'm starting new relationships almost weekly with a new client, and so here I am in this moment, noticing myself, wanting them to like me, trying really hard to get that feel for their energy so I can match them, and I'll say something and then I'll be like, oh, did that land okay? And it's so fragile. You haven't built up the currency yet. And it's extra fraught because, this is presumably somebody who's paying me for my time. So they have to actually really, the pressure's on, but this has to be an experience that they find value in. And boy, it's hard not to say me. They find value in me. Right.
I make a joke to my clients all the time, especially at the beginning. Like, look, the first few sessions is just about for us to figure out if we're a good fit. Like, if you can't talk to me, if you don't want like this face, or if my dad jokes really bother you, like, it's fine. It's not going to hurt my feelings. And then I always say it will, but I just won't let you know about it, I mean, you can't help but like think like, what, did I have some food in my teeth that day, or what? Like, what was wrong with me that moment? But it's not. I mean, like, that's what as therapists we've been trained to try to do, but we can't not be human at the same time.
Yeah. Cannot be human. I think also a big subcategory of this is expectations, because expectations are good and bad.
Sure.
You need to know what your needs are, but expectations will also, at their worst, rob us of the moment. So if I'm seeing Colin, and Colin's my client, and I'm like, oh, I love Colin, Wednesdays at 9 a.m. we both drink our coffees, and he's so fun. I love talking to him. And we come in, we meet in our Zoom call, and I'm like, Colin, I watched Home Alone 2 the other day. It was so funny. And then you just start breaking down, and you're like, bro, I do not want to talk about Home Alone 2. My expectations that we were going to have like a banter and go back and forth about like, something that we both like, robbed me of seeing you for who you were. It robbed me from seeing you as the experience you needed in therapy, and it robbed the moment.
Ooh, and how close are expectations and agendas?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my God, that's so true. Yeah.
And like the minute that I have an agenda for my client, I'm already effed.
Yeah.
I mean, it's hard. It's terrible. In my opinion, that's terrible therapy, right? It's like, it's meeting them where they are. It's being able to be in the moment and hold the space and hold them and allow for them to show up exactly as they are for that day, and really work on myself to remove those expectations and those agendas.
Yeah, because I could be like, Colin, you're not supposed to cry this session. It's not my treatment plan.
Right. It's too early on a Wednesday.
I was working on like 3 sessions from now. You're breaking down too soon, bro. It's too soon.
Home Alone 2 does that to me for sure.
Yeah.
There is an interesting like tension between having expectations, which we can't not have expectations. Like that's just
Right.
it's we can try not to and like try to remove ourselves, but like, we cannot not, like I said, be human and not bring our own stuff into the room, into the relationship, whatever that might be. But we have that expectation, and then like Jason was loves to say, and I totally agree, is like we have to allow. So we have the expectation of what's happening. We have to allow them to be what they are, and then not us. We don't get destroyed in the moment,
Right.
and we allow that to happen. We let it wash over us, go through us, and then we accept the client or the person and the relationship, for who they are. And then we don't, it doesn't scare us off. We don't go running for the hills. Like it's safe. We make it safe for them to be themselves with us. And then
Yeah.
that, and I feel like those are the exchanges that people don't have growing up. Sometimes people that come to
Yes.
therapy a lot of times, and they just have parents that aren't capable of that, or friends or family members that they just didn't get that, and so nothing is ever safe for them, and
Yeah.
they don't have that
Mm.
feeling of safety and attachment that a lot of us get to have, and then take that
Yeah.
into the world, you know what I mean? So they're always feeling like, can I trust this person with this? Can I even say this?
Yeah.
And that's what's so healing about therapy, right? Like I think we're starting to get at what actually is going on in the room. And that's like, I get to show up exactly how I am, be seen by another human being, and have that human being tell me that I'm enough,
Mm-hmm.
just as I am, without having to do anything or change or whatever. Just show up that day and that be okay.
Right.
Ooh, first of all, that's hard.
Yeah.
And second of all, it's also really, really healing.
There's a lot of power in those moments, and it's when we do a lot. Those are like, it seems like we're not doing much, but it's a lot to not do. Did I say that right? Like not doing something. Like this time I'm like, oh, I want to tell him this, but I'm like, okay, just chill. Let him, let him feel acceptance.
Well,
And then later.
it makes me think about, and I could be off on this, but it makes me think about the difference between commitment and appreciation. Like, so I don't know, have you ever been in a relationship with someone and you've said I love you all the time, but then for some reason you get like this wild hair and you go, yeah, but I like you. You know what I mean? Like, I love you, but I also like really enjoy hanging out with you. It's not just a commitment thing. It's that I really like being around you.
Mm-hmm.
And I think whenever we're like growing up with our parents or caregivers or our siblings, whoever it is, we need to be loved, but we also need to be enjoyed. And we need to be accepted, but also enjoyed. And I don't know. I feel like, I don't know. That makes sense.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. And you're getting at something else that's really important. And I find, and again, this is a Jason thing about bringing myself fully into the room and really being my real self.
Yeah.
Because I think my clients, because if you're going to be in a relationship, that has to be there, right? And so like if I'm just this stoic individual sitting back with a notepad, they can't have that connection. And then when I say something like, you get to show up as you are, you can dismiss that. You say, oh, well, you're my therapist, I pay you to say that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But there's something true also about, no, I'm your therapist, but I'm also Jason, and you also can feel what because I make it real clear how I feel about my clients, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so like they can hopefully, and I would be able to feel my regard for them. And so when I say something like, you get to be how, it's more than just the stoic therapist. It's this person I'm in a relationship.
Yeah.
When I hear that line, but you're my therapist, I pay you, I'm like, I mean, there's a part of me that's like, but I like you too. You know what I mean? Like, I know you pay me and I'm a therapist, but like, I like talking to you. But in a split second later, I'm like, oh, that's their defenses kicking in.
Yeah.
Like
it is
like, I'm like, I feel bad. Like, oh, okay. All right. We're still working. We're still working.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My therapist likes to say something like, Oh, but I can see that got in there just a minute before those defenses came rushing in. I saw a little bit just sunk in there. I just want to say that I noticed.
There's a little bit of thing there. I like that.
Where did this, Andy? What made you think of this question today about attachments, about what we bring to relationships?
Candidly, we're in the pandemic right now. The only person I've touched physically held is my wife. I haven't held anyone since March, and we're in December now. I haven't shaken hands or done anything with anyone other than my wife. And
hold on. I'm making a note. Hug Andy. You're on my list. You're on my hug list, man.
And so for me, I just really interact with her, and I love her so much. And it's a good relationship. And I catch myself in my daydreams and in my fog, and then finding when she surprises me, and having times in my life whenever I'm like, oh, I didn't expect you to say that. I don't just love you, I like you. It's not just my stuff from before. It's not just my history, but it's that I can't write you, and I'm meeting the moment as you improv new things in my life. There are still new experiences that exist here. But how many times this year's been so politically loaded. We've talked about this kind of briefly before we started pressing record. How many times have we caught ourselves talking to someone about a concept and then realized that we were pissed at the concept, and then realized I'm talking to you, Colin, or you, Jason, instead of the concept itself. And that was me being in my head. And it's just because of the quarantine, we're all really living in this inner world. It's like that quote, there is another world, but it's this one.
Yeah.
But we're caught up in our heads.
That's so, and that's also getting at like core conflicts within couples, right? Where it's like, my vulnerability is, I'm in my vulnerability, so I have my safety position, and my safety position pokes at your vulnerability.
Yeah,
puts you into your safety position, and then off we go. That's our big fight, right?
Yeah,
and that fight isn't about that other person. That fight's about your past. It's about all your stuff, all that baggage.
Yes,
that quote. I can't help but think of like that existential concept of we're all actually alone. We're all alone together. We're like the difference between subjective and objective experiences. Like we cannot not be our own subjective individual and with our history, but there is this world that we all live in. We're all simultaneously living in that world, bumping up together like bubbles or marbles,
we're blind.
Yeah,
we have blindfolds on. It's like we're in bumper cars. Yeah. And the more and more you think about it, the more and more you realize how caught up in your own head you are, and not really living in the present moment.
Yeah.
And that's scary. And think about all the fights that you got in with partners, friends, whoever it was. Was that really about them? Or were you caught up in your head? Or were they caught up in their head? Right. Yeah, just like what you said, Jason. I mean, it's like, it's so dangerous. So, okay, what do we do with it? Well, how do you get out of it? What do you do?
I think you talked about it. I think that if we can do the allowing thing, right? If we can build up a tolerance for this feeling that we have inside, because there's like those defenses and those things have come with some overwhelming emotional content. If we can tolerate it enough to actually be in the moment, to actually listen to this other person, to recognize like that helps us to see what's our stuff and what's their stuff. It gives that little bit of distance, but you can't do that until we can know that my inner world is not going to destroy me.
Yeah. I think a big thing is stripping away the power of the inner world. And that's really what it is. I mean, how do you make your world work for you rather than you work for it. And a big thing is coming to therapy, taking away the power by talking about it, and making it realize it's not autopilot. You can shift these things. And you can make it a fantasy and a fun place to go to rather than I don't know. Like I had this idea. Maybe I shouldn't talk about this on the recording, but I'm copywriting it. Okay, it's the idea of like a short where someone gets in an argument with their partner, and slowly over time it builds up without them addressing it, but like just kind of like Who Framed Roger Rabbit or like Space Jam, or I'm giving like old school references.
Right.
Showing my age.
They're all like movies with cartoon characters and real life people.
Yes. Like CGI and that kind of stuff comes in, and the inner world overtakes the real world in visual time, to where you realize that the entire show or the entire short is all, cartoon, and you're not really living in reality. So I think like the goal is to catch it and to be like, no, that's a CGI rabbit over there. Okay. I'm back in reality now. Yeah. No. That airplane doesn't exist. Pulling it back.
And that's part of our job too, is to help clients recognize when they're in their story.
Yeah.
That's why
caught up
therapists will ask you, like, tell me about your past. Like, when does this happen to you before? Like, what are your experiences with this argument you're having with your partner now? Yeah. When has that shown up for you before? Or, tell me about your childhood. Like, I know it's cliche, but it's the reason why we ask these questions, because these are how we build up our life. That's how we got here. That's what led us to here. That's the prologue of our past. And that, and once we start unearthing some of that and with the client, and they can look at it and be like, okay, all right, so that happened to me. Yeah, that I can see how now that's probably actually affecting me now. And it's more about that than the actual thing that my partner and I were arguing about. And I can kind of see it from their point of view now, and the part, like we said earlier, their partner is doing the same thing at the same time.
Yeah. And it does feel cliche.
Yeah.
It does. Like, I mean, calling it out, it straight up does.
Cliches are there for a reason, though.
But they're there for a reason. Right. Like it's real.
There's some truth in cliches.
There's some truth in being ignored as a child and never getting over it, and then repeating, never wanting to be ever ignored again. Right. Or feeling like the perfect child and wanting to always get all the things.
Or if you're ignored, never feeling like you matter enough for anyone to like you.
Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, I think that this haze exists, and it's haunting. I brought it up to one of my clients, and they said that in Asian culture, and I said, which one? And he said, all of them. I was like, okay. There's a spirit, a ghost that, like, in Asian cultures, they latch onto you and they cling onto you like an anchor. And I tried to find it, like what that specifically was before we talked about that. But that image of a ghost just like weighing on you, like, is so real, just like having so much weight on your shoulders and trying to get it off when you're trying to see this reality that's in front of us.
And our story was so important because we needed to operate within our story for a long time in order to survive. Right? That story got built because that was the world in which we found ourselves, whether because of family systems, because all that kind of stuff, right? So that was really important to have that story. And then all of a sudden, what we find is, as we get older, that story starts bumping up against the real world.
Yeah.
And it doesn't always match the world in which we live.
Yeah. And like Colin was saying, that's so scary that everyone's doing it. It's like we're all texting and driving.
Yeah,
we're all texting and driving in our unconscious, and it sucks.
Wow. Yeah, that's dangerous. We're gonna get into some accidents. Well,
Yeah,
Andy,
I
what
mean, we do. We do.
do you think
That's
we
how the accidents happen.
do you think we properly addressed your question in a way?
I mean, this is a talk that can go on for.
Oh yes, this is
There
an
could be an
unending
entire
conversation.
podcast about this.
Well, this
I mean-
theme is gonna seep into everything else we talk about because I think we're getting at some of the core things.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because you can talk about mother-father complex. You can talk about attachment. You can talk about everything developmentally that creates us to project. I don't even think we've even defined anything within this episode, but that's because it's so broad. It's hard to define because it comes from different camps. And yeah, but I think it's always important to talk about.
Well, I love kicking it around with you guys.
Yeah.
Thanks for bringing that in.
Yeah,
Yeah, of course.
fun to talk. Fun to talk.
Cue the music.
Do it.
Music.
All right. Up with that.